Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a fascinating and definitely unconventional look at how we understand organ failure, and specifically the whole idea around organ transplants.
Yeah, our sources today are some pretty explosive excerpts. They're from Toxin Accumulation and the Folly of Organ Transplants by Futu Wu, who's called Master in the text, and Junshi Dech.
Okay, so Folly of Organ Transplants. That title alone tells you this isn't the standard view.
Not at all. This is really a deep dive with you could say, a clear mission. We're here to look at a philosophy that basically flips conventional medical thinking on its head.
Right.
The authors, they aren't just, critiquing surgical results. They're hitting at the fundamental concept of localized organ failure itself.
Okay.
Their argument is that needing a transplant isn't about just one bad organ. It's actually a sign of a whole body breakdown. And they say it's driven by accumulated toxins.
Accumulated toxins.
Yeah.
And their core idea, you said it's in Master's Insight, #084.
That's the one. And it's a pretty shocking claim, really. It completely reframes the situation for anyone facing this.
So what is it?
They state, pretty bluntly, that by the time you're even thinking about a transplant, your entire body is already saturated with toxins.
The entire body. Saturated. Wow. Okay, let's unpack that right away. If the whole body is saturated, what exactly do they mean by toxins? Is it just like pollution?
That's a really key question because, yeah, their definition of the toxins is much broader than just, say, environmental poisons or chemicals. They include stuff like metabolic residues, things the body just didn't manage to clear out over, decades.
Ah, okay. Internal stuff.
Right. And also pharmaceutical residues that can build up in tissues. Plus the cumulative exposure we all get from air, water, maybe poor diet choices over time.
So it's like the body's total internal pollution load that hasn't been managed?
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's the sum total of everything the body couldn't effectively process and eliminate.
So then the failing organ, maybe it's a kidney, maybe the liver, that isn't the real illness according to them. It's just the alarm bell.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's the signal that this total internal pollution, this toxin load, has finally reached a critical point, a breaking point.
They have a specific term for that threshold.
Right. They do. They call it reaching the body's toxin accumulation saturation point.
Saturation point.
Yeah. And the insight, the core idea, is that the organ failure itself isn't the primary problem. It's just the symptom you can see. The visible, maybe even terminal symptom of that total body saturation.
A systemic collapse that's kind of hidden in plain sight until one part gives out.
Exactly. They argue that what looks like, a heart collapsing or kidneys failing, it's really just one organ fails first and reveals the truth.
And the truth being?
The truth being, according to the source, that all the other organs are actually already near collapse from accumulated toxins.
Wow. So it's like a ticking clock for the rest of the body, even if one organ seems to be the only problem.
It really paints that picture. And, this creates a fundamental problem for how we usually intervene.
How so?
Well, if the whole system, the whole physiological environment is teetering right on that edge of saturation, just replacing one single part, even if you get a perfect donor organ, it can't really fix the toxic environment it's being put into.
Ah, okay. The new part lands in the same saturated system.
Right. And this systemic view is why they end up calling organ transplantation folly.
Okay. That really sets up a major contradiction for, I think, how most people see transplants. The common idea is you get a new organ, you get a new lease on life, right? A significant extension.
The second chance idea.
Yeah. But this source argues that's basically a dangerous delusion.
It is, according to Wu and Dage. Their claim is that a transplant doesn't solve the underlying problem, it just shifts where the next failure will happen. But crucially, they say it actually accelerates the timeline for that next failure.
Accelerates it.
Well, think about it. If the whole system is already overloaded, saturated, introducing a major stressor like a new organ, the surgery, the drugs, it pushes things faster.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The source lists 4 specific, immediate reasons why they believe a transplant speeds up the failure of the patient's other remaining organs.
4 reasons.
Okay.
Okay, let's break those down. Because, often you hear about post-surgery complications, but this sounds like they're pinpointing specific mechanisms tied to the transplant itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the first one is pretty straightforward. Trauma. The surgery itself, it triggers excessive immune reactions all through the body, which is already compromised, remember?
Right.
And this wastes precious energy and resources that really should be going towards just maintaining the other organs that are already struggling.
Okay, so the surgical trauma itself is the first hit. What's the second? This must connect to the new organ, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The second point is about the anti-rejection drugs.
Yeah.
You need them, obviously, to protect the new organ from the immune system.
Standard practice.
Standard, yes. But the source points out a critical downside. These powerful drugs heavily suppress the body's own natural detoxification systems.
Wait, so the very pathways the body might use to clear out some of that pre-existing toxin load, those get shut down?
That's the argument. Effectively shut down or severely hampered.
Okay, hold on. If the patient is already at this saturation point you mentioned, and then you introduce medication that stops their detox pathways, I mean, according to this logic, that's almost guaranteeing a faster decline in the other organs, isn't it? It sounds self-defeating.
It does sound that way, based on their premise, which leads directly into their third reason. Simply that the toxins that were already there, saturating the system, they just continue accumulating in the other body parts. They have nowhere to go, and the means to process them are now even weaker.
So the toxic environment basically remains or even gets worse because the cleanup crew got sent home.
Pretty much. The clock just speeds up on the other organs.
And the fourth point. Is it about the recovery itself?
Yes, exactly. The fourth point is about the sheer physical and, energetic cost of healing from such a massive surgery.
Right. Major operations take a huge toll.
A huge toll. They highlight that the shock, the trauma, the immense stress of healing, it forces those other organs, the ones already near collapse, remember? It forces them to deteriorate rapidly simply because all the body's energy is being drained just trying to recover from the transplant surgery itself.
Wow. Okay, so those four factors together, immune trauma, shutting down detox, ongoing toxin buildup, and the energy drain of recovery.
Yeah.
If those are really accelerating failure in the other organs, then your conclusion must be pretty stark.
It is. They call it a golden conclusion from the master's view, and it's devastating. It says the whole process wasn't really life extension at all. Instead, the patient was just being pushed into the next breakdown.
Pushed faster towards the next failure.
Right, and they even give specific sequences of failure they observed.
Like what?
They connect the dots quite clearly. The source notes a pattern. Maybe after a liver transplant, the next thing to go are the kidneys.
Okay.
After a kidney replacement, perhaps the heart gives out.
Well,
And they even mention that after something like a heart stent, which is also an intervention, they observed the brain beginning to shrink, suggesting that systemic resources were just being depleted across the board.
that pattern, if it holds, is compelling. It suggests the system is just sacrificing the next weakest link because of the huge stress of the intervention.
That seems to be their interpretation. The sequence of failure isn't random. It's almost predictable because the underlying saturation level dictates which organ is next in line to collapse under added stress.
So the endpoint isn't really fixing the problem, it's just a cascade.
Exactly. The ultimate result, they argue, is the systemic collapse, something the medical community might often attribute to, just old age or maybe failure to thrive. But Wu and Dage claim the root cause was that original toxic saturation, which was then compounded by an intervention that actually suppressed the body's ability to clean house.
Okay, so if replacing the organ is, in their view, folly and potentially harmful, what's the alternative? What does the master's view say about true recovery?
Well, the alternative is pretty radical. It demands a complete systemic reboot, basically. And it's centered entirely on something they call hyperpurification and regeneration.
Hyperpurification.
The whole goal shifts. Instead of replacing a part, the focus becomes total internal cleanup. The idea is to give the organs that haven't failed yet, the ones maybe near collapse, a real chance to fully recover.
So it requires specific steps, you said, mandatory ones for true recovery and life extension.
Yes, very specific mandates. The first step sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult in practice. You have to immediately stop all toxin intake and absorption, period.
Stop everything coming in. Okay, makes sense given the premise.
Non-negotiable, according to them. But that's just step one. From there, the patient absolutely must establish what they call a hyper-purified environment.
A hyper-purified environment, what does that mean? Like a clean room?
Oh, much more than that. This isn't just about a standard hospital sterile field. This is where the demands get, frankly, extreme.
How extreme?
The source mandates establishing a human paradise, that's their term, and they define it as an environment that is 100 times purer than any standard operating room.
100 times. Purer than an OR. It's hard to even imagine. What's the reasoning for something so extreme?
Well, the logic follows their core premise. If the body is already saturated to its limit, then even tiny, minimal ongoing exposure to everyday toxins is enough to keep the accumulation going, or at least prevent reversal.
So you mean absolute purity to even halt the crisis?
That's the idea. Total, absolute isolation from environmental inputs. Give the body zero new toxic burden to deal with so it can focus all its energy on cleanup and repair.
Okay, wow. 100 times purer. What kind of, technology are they talking about to achieve that? Is that even feasible?
They do mention something specific. They say you need to use air-6-free maize purification technology.
Air-6-free maize purification.
Yeah, it sounds like some kind of advanced, multi-layered, active air and potentially water filtration system. The goal is clearly to eliminate basically every measurable environmental contaminant, dust, chemicals, microbes, everything.
Creating a literal bubble.
Pretty much. A meticulously clean bubble.
Mm.
And then the final piece of the puzzle is allowing those organs that haven't yet failed, remember the ones near collapse, allowing them to just rest and regenerate within this ultra-pure environment.
Okay.
And this is combined with physician-directed medication, but importantly, medication designed to aid natural function, not suppress systems like the anti-rejection drugs do.
So this whole aggressive, comprehensive approach, stopping intake, hyperpure environment, rest and regeneration.
Okay.
What's the promise here? What's the golden conclusion on this path?
The source offers a final wrap-up on this. Real prolongation, they say, means delaying all future failures, not just swapping out the current one.
Delaying all future failures.
Yes. And the path to doing that is singular and absolute in their view. Stopping toxins is your only remaining option. It forces this complete, maybe even life-altering commitment to purification, both external and internal.
That system-wide focus, the saturation idea, it really is the thread connecting their entire argument, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And they even use a very basic observation from medicine to illustrate this toxin theory in action. It's about how fast different people heal.
Oh, right. Like why kids bounce back faster than older adults.
Exactly. If we connect their toxin theory to just general healing, it offers a really specific alternative explanation for that. You know, traditionally we say kids heal fast because of fast metabolism or growth hormones, youthfulness.
Sure, the standard explanations.
But the truth, according to the master's view, it hinges entirely on the toxin load.
So how does that work?
Okay, so for young people, their quick recovery isn't just youth. It's attributed specifically to low toxin levels. Because their internal environment is relatively cleaner, the body has a massive energy surplus, more resources available for repair and regeneration when injury happens.
Makes sense within their framework. Less cleanup needed, more energy for building.
Right. Now flip that. When we see elderly people, or maybe someone with what we call weak immunity, heal slowly, the conventional explanation is, aging, organ decline, weaker systems overall. But the master's view attributes that slowness directly to high toxin levels. The body is already working overtime just trying to manage the existing toxic burden, so there are far fewer resources left over for dealing with new injuries or repairs.
So this completely reframes the whole concept of constitution or resilience.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about age or even genetics primarily, but about how well your body has managed its internal toxin burden over time.
That's exactly the implication. It shifts the focus dramatically. They actually offer a really definitive statement to kind of wrap up this logic.
Okay.
They say, poor constitution, high toxin load, quick recovery, low toxin load. This, they conclude, is the true logic of health.
Wow. Okay, so toxin burden becomes the single most critical variable determining your health, your resilience, your recovery potential.
According to the source, yes, that's the fundamental logic they're presenting.
This whole deep dive then has really centered on a radical paradigm shift. It's moving away from treating the one failing part we can see to recognizing this idea of systemic toxic saturation as the ultimate, maybe life-limiting condition. The source really challenges the very definition of medical repair, doesn't it? Swapping out replacement for this extreme, comprehensive purification.
It really does. And that extreme purification concept, the human paradise idea, it raises a pretty important question, I think, for you, the listener, to consider based on this material. If the body's ability to heal, its fundamental resilience, is directly linked to its internal toxin load, and if the ultimate treatment, in their view, requires an environment literally 100 times purer than our best hospitals can offer, what does that imply? How does that radical requirement change how we define what a truly healthy environment even is? Not just for treatment, but for prevention in our daily lives.
That's a heavy question. If the ideal is that pure, what does that say about our normal environments?
Something for you to definitely mull over as you navigate, the complex systems all around us.
A truly challenging and definitely fascinating perspective on health, aging, and longevity.
Yeah.
We hope this deep dive into these highly unconventional sources has given you a new, maybe even unsettling lens through which to view human wellness and medical intervention.